So, would you talk about how the lymphatic system affects the breast health specifically?
Absolutely. They're so intricately connected. And I'll start with the basics. The lymphatic system, you have roughly 500 to 1,000 or more lymph nodes in your body, depending on who you talk to. And the lymph nodes are in the soft folds of the body, like they're in the neck, the armpits, the groin, behind the knees, the breast tissue, and a lot of them are in the abdomen around all of your internal organs and intestines. And what people don't realize is the breast tissue is rich with lymphatic vessels and lymph nodes. And if your lymphatic system is not functioning optimally, that also affects the lymphatic system in the breast tissue. And also, if you're not wearing a properly fitting bra, it's too tight, it leaves marks, that can trap the lymph in the breast tissue, which leads to, breast pain, inflammation, and fibrocystic breasts. I mean, it can cause other issues in the breast tissue. So it's intricately connected. And, the lymphatic system controls the fluid. So it controls the fluid in the breast. Um, it removes toxins and waste from the breast tissue. And if it's trapped, it cannot get out. And also, your lymphatic system it transports lymphatic cells or little macrophages or, your immune cells to fight disease pathogens in the breast tissue. And if your bra is too tight and preventing circulation going in and out, that can also affect the breast tissue. So they're intricately connected. And it plays a vital role. So one affects the other.
Yes, thank you for explaining that because I think sometimes the lymph system isn't really talked about with breast health until after a surgery, like what you were talking about when they have the lymphedema, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what do I do? But knowing and understanding this before is so important. Talk to us about some of your clients, like common breast concerns and complaints.
Yes, I see a lot of ladies who have benign lumps, and so they come to me because they're afraid it may turn into cancer. A lot of fibrocystic breast health cysts, and I work with a lot of women who have breast cancer and are going through treatment or who have already had treatment. One thing that I read in this really great book I have called The Healthy Happy Breasts, I mean, the research that they did says that, 90% of all breast lumps are benign, which I thought was really interesting. So I work with a lot of ladies who come to me who want to know if there's anything they can do to, change the situation and work on their health. So I actually have one client that I love to share the story. She had very severe pain in her breast tissue and she had some lumps. She had fibrocystic breasts and she had a lump in her axillary lymph nodes in her armpit. And her husband, she couldn't even let her husband touch her breasts. And so, but she was worried it was going to turn into cancer. So she was seeing me regularly on a weekly basis for lymphatic massage on the breast tissue, breast massage. And so I worked with her and I taught her what she could do at home. And after 3 months, the tenderness was gone. And her husband was very happy about that. And the lump in her axillary lymph node was also gone. So I think it was just a swollen lymph node from stagnation in the breast tissue and, inflammation. So I do work with a lot of those ladies and coach them on lifestyle changes. And oftentimes the situation completely resolves itself in a few months with, regular self-care and then seeing me for consultation.
Okay, I just want to piggyback on this because I think this is super critical. And I know for myself, I remember in my 20s, early 20s, I was told I had fibrocystic breast, and my doctor just said, "Oh, it's no big deal. Just maybe don't drink as much caffeine." I had no idea, and I did not know, and he did not tell me that there was such a correlation and connection between those, the different quality of the breast tissue and breast cancer. And I mean, I would have done stuff if I had known. And who knows how things would have turned out if they had, if it might have been enough to prevent my breast cancer. But it's really important that this is addressed. And I think it's not talked about enough.
No, I think that's true. That's absolutely true. And, you know, uh, that's why I like to focus on breast health and coaching women. And I also do remote consultations online for women that have questions and want to work with me. And I teach ladies how to do self breast massage. That's one of the things I teach them to do: dry skin brushing, self breast massage. Because backing up, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I the doctors are trying to normalize fibrocystic breasts. It's really not normal. It's common, unfortunately, but it's not normal and it can be reversed with some lifestyle changes. I personally, I have fibrocystic breasts, that changes as I get older, the tissues in the breast change. But just doing some simple things and doing the self breast massage in the shower every day has really changed the tenderness of the breast tissue. And it's really amazing how just a few simple things can have such a profound effect.
Yeah, it does, and mine are not fibrocystic anymore, and it's shocking to me how much better the tissue is than it was back in my 20s, because I'm almost going towards 50 now, and it would seem that it would be worse, but knowing this stuff like you're talking about, how to take care of them and how much, diet and nutrition and, general detox capacity makes such a huge, huge difference. Um, so yeah, I love that message.
Absolutely. And, fibrocystic breasts, I mean, there's three things to really look at around that. And, the number one is inflammation. And, that can be general inflammation in the body, and that also affects the breast tissue. Estrogen dominance plays a huge role too, as well as stagnant lymph. So, those are three things to look at when you're addressing fibrocystic breasts and also benign lumps um, and
Yeah.
cysts.
And those areas are all things that we are testing within our cancer freedom course. So the inflammation, that estrogen, progesterone balance, and the detox capacity with the lymph and everything are things that you can see and know, like, oh, that's an issue for me. Maybe I need to look at, the quality of my breast tissue. Although I think, like you're saying, everybody should look at it anyways.
Agreed. Yeah. And the other thing that I really want to talk about is breast implant disease and healing from that. I think a lot of women don't that have breast implants don't really make the connection of health issues they're having with their breast implants. Um, and that really has to be looked at. And I have clients say, well, mine aren't leaking. Well, I've had clients that their implants weren't leaking. However, when they became ill and they went to have explant surgery, there was actually mold around the outer portion of the implants, and that was making them very sick. How did the mold get there? Well, you're exposed to mold. It likes to attach to foreign objects in the body, and that's what the implants are. So I just really wanted to address that as well for ladies who have implants. If you've had them more than 10 years, you really want to consider having them removed or having them replaced and really assessing, what is your health and have them checked out because the FDA has said in their reports that eventually all implants will leak.
Yeah.
So I just really that's something that's really not talked about very often. And more women are having the explant surgery because of health issues or because they're afraid of developing health issues.
Yeah, I've had quite a few of my clients that I have either I referred to surgeons to get them taken out because especially we're testing mold as well, and you can see that. But also just, recommending like, hey, if you're gonna have surgery and remove your cancer and they're telling you to get an implant, think about this beforehand because it's so often what you're saying is like later there's complications and they're not they're adding more toxins to the whole issue, which is going the wrong direction from the way we're looking at it. Absolutely.
Correct. Yes, and I've actually had ladies have the implants, and then a month later, they have to have them removed because they're reacting to them so quickly.
The benign cysts, how does that play into these concerns and complaints and stuff in the lymph?
Usually those will resolve over time, making some lifestyle changes as well. So I that's really all I had to say is they can be resolved. I personally have had breast cysts, and interestingly enough, it was always after an emotional traumatically event. So it was something, it was intimate relationship things, and it was a traumatic ending to two relationships I've had in my past. And after both of them, I developed breast cysts. And the nutritionist I was seeing at the time years ago said, well, that happens to a lot of women and they will resolve. And they did. But, I was doing some self care and castor oil packs and things of that nature. But I just thought that was an interesting pers- perspective on all of it. The breasts are very nurturing, intimacy, nurturing, and the emotionally traumatic event caused that for me. Now, I'm not saying that's true for everyone, but it was interesting.
Yeah, no, those connections are something that we like to explore because we see that so often. The trauma manifest in the tissues, and it's again not something people are talking about, but it's very important to address both the trauma and then the tissue as well, to really release everything so it's not going to then develop into chronic disease of some form. Things that women can do to support their breast health.
That's a great question. And I like to start that one off with a proper fitting bra. Because 4 out of 5 women are wearing bras that are either too small or too tight, and they're uncomfortable. So your bra should never leave red marks or deep indentations in your tissues. And also, I'm not really a proponent of wearing underwire bras. I do wear them occasionally, but I take them off as soon as I can. That wire under the bra ends right where the lymph goes into the axillary lymph nodes. So it can really block the lymph from flowing. And breasts get healthy circulation when they wobble or bounce. And so it's really best to go without a bra and not wear a bra 24/7, or take it off when you get home. And Katrina, I know you're familiar with this too, but I really like to promote Dressed to Kill. It's like the link between bras and breast cancer, and this couple did a lot of research. So I'm just going to share that this book is available in case you're interested in learning more about that. I won't go into detail, but they do talk about that, about proper fitting bras and how it can trap the lymph and waste products in the breast tissue. So, a proper fitting bra is the first thing I like women to look at. I've got my cheat sheet here because there's so many things you could do, and I didn't want to forget any. And the other thing that's not really talked about is staying well hydrated. If your lymphatic system is not getting a lot of fluids, because it's the lymphatic system is your river of life. It's also called your silent sanitation or silent sewer system, and so it's moving toxins out of the body. And if you're not getting enough water and you're dehydrated, your lymphatic system is more like sludge instead of your river of life. And so staying well hydrated is really important. Um, Deep breathing is really a great way to move the deep lymph in your abdomen. So that deep belly breathing it moves the lymph through the abdomen, the thoracic, and up to the neck where it empties back into your blood circulation. Um, and also deep belly laughter, that turns on your happy hormones and really shifts from negative to positive. So that's a great way too.
Oh, I
Yeah.
wanted to go back onto the bras because I think this is a really, really big deal. Now, some ladies need more support. I'm just going to put that out there. So just take that with a big, grain of salt to what I'm going to say. But especially for us smaller ladies, I just want to put it out there like bras are not necessary. And the tissue um, does not necessarily droop when it's not held up. A lot of times we're doing the work for the breast tissue and, we are all scared that it's going to droop. And it's not necessarily even needing a bra. So if you can let the girls hang free, I am a big fan of not always wearing a bra. And there's again, no affiliate links or anything. There's a company that has a minism, MINISM bra. And it's basically a pad, just so you don't look cold, that like affixes itself on the inside of your clothing. I love those. I wear them all the time, so I don't have to wear any bra, but I don't look cold all the time. So there's so many creative, amazing, healthier versions of bras out there. And just not wearing one at all. I just want to encourage women, like, that's not where the end all be all is, to have bras on all the time.
Correct. Yeah. And they have bralettes too that are really comfortable. I have some of those as well. Because I'm blessed with smaller girls, and so it's easier to go without a bra. And I certainly understand that more well endowed women, it's more comfortable to wear a bra. But those Cooper's ligaments, the ligaments that really suspend the breast tissue, they actually strengthen when they're not in a bra all the time. So it's kind of like a workout for the breast tissue and the ligaments. So you can take that into consideration as well. So
Thank you for saying that. Exactly. So important.
another one of my favorites is, of course, the self breast massage. And, I teach women how to do that. There's my colleague, Aubrey Lisicki in Seattle. She's amazing. And she is the one that teaches the breast massage course for certification for breast massage. And she's a friend of mine. And she developed the FAST technique. It's PHAST. And it's pump, honk, around the clock, slide, and twist. And it's really it's really a fun process, and I do that every day in the shower. It's really easy with some soap, and it takes about 2 minutes to do. So self breast massage really helps with that circulation in the breast tissue, softens the tissue, gets the circulation going, the blood and the lymph. So the self breast massage is great, and so I recommend that. Along with, the thing you can do before you get in the shower is dry skin brushing. So, dry skin brushing is great for your entire lymphatic system, and you can also gently do it to the breast tissue with gentle circles around the breast. And the other side effect, in addition to stimulating your lymphatic system, is you're going to have nice, soft, baby soft skin because it also exfoliates that dead skin layer. So your skin will feel softer and have a nice glowing effect.
That's a nice benefit for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So you may not need as much body lotion either because body lotion can tend to clog the pores. And if you're not using really clean products, you're also putting toxins right back into your body after you do those healthy things. So, and I'm sure you focus on with your own clients, Katrina.
Yeah, those lotions, it's so hard because, people are like, "Oh, it smells good. It makes my skin soft." But those lotions and anything that you put on your skin is actually getting right into your bloodstream without the filtering of the digestive system. So just keep that in mind. Like, the way I look at it, like, don't bother eating organic food if you're then putting toxic chemicals on your skin, because it's kind of, it doesn't even make sense because you're just getting those toxins in a different way, probably more so even.
Right.
Um, Although let's just do all this stuff, right? Just don't overwhelm yourself in the process.
These can be a little bit messy, but some ladies do clay compresses on the breast tissue. And I've tried it too. You can leave it on for a few hours and then wash it off with warm water, but that helps pull toxins out of the breast tissue. It absorbs toxins and it can ease pain and bruising. Um,
What kind of slays do you use? Can you give us a little more information about that? That sounds fabulous.
you can just get the bentonite clay. So you can either get the powder form or the liquid. The liquid for me is a little bit easier, but if you want to do a true compress, you can get the dehydrated powder and mix it with a little water to your level of thickness, and that makes it a little bit thicker. So I use the bentonite clay that I get at the local health food store here. You can order it online, and the other thing, it can be a little bit drying to the breast tissue. So after you wash it off, it's a great time to do self breast massage with your favorite fatty carrier oil like coconut. And you can even add your favorite high quality essential oils to that, because there's certain essential oils that are really beneficial for breast health and lymphatic health as well.
Like which ones? You want to share that? That sounds fantastic.
Well, my three favorites, I should say, and I actually made my own serum that I use is frankincense, sandalwood, and lavender. And I also add copaiba as well. So those are four of my favorites, but also the bay laurel or Laurus nebulus and cypress and lemon. Those are really good for the lymphatic system. So I encourage you to play with it and create your own little serum that you love and just mix it with a little fatty carrier oil and massage that into the breast tissue.
I love
Yeah.
that.
And then you smell wonderful without the toxins. So, so yeah, so that's one that I love to do. And and what's something that's a little bit controversial too is uh, a lot of us suffer from iodine deficiency, and and the breast, the uterus, and the prostate for men. Oh, the thyroid. They require more iodine than any other part of the body. Of course, if you have hyperthyroid, then you really need to work with your doctor around that. I don't recommend it for hyperthyroid.
Or Hashimoto's. Yeah. So just to clarify, we do not want any iodine for Hashimoto's either.
No, correct. That is correct. But since we've added bromides to our diet, it seems that a lot of autoimmune and other breast cancers have escalated a little bit because the bromide actually displaces the iodine on the receptor cells. And also, fluoride does the same thing. So, you know, definitely work with your doctor, but I take iodine supplements and my thyroid's normal and I actually feel better. I have noticed a difference that I feel better adding the iodine to my diet. So that's something to consider. Do you have any feedback on that, Katrina?
Yeah, yeah. A couple of things. So I think the iodine, I would agree, is can be amazing. But if you have Hashimoto's or like Rochelle was saying, the hyperthyroid, you don't want to be using that, especially the Hashimoto's. It's going to flare up the autoimmune and create more chaos. Even if you do need the iodine, it's not worth it. I have heard some about lavender stimulating estrogen dominance and the estrogens. So I would kind of stay away from the lavender with breast health if people have, like especially an estrogen dominant cancer or even just, estrogen dominance while they have cancer. Do you have thoughts on that or would you agree with that?
That's another controversial topic, and I'm kind of in the middle on that one because lavender is an adaptogen. And so it goes in the body where it's needed. And I'm not so sure that the research they did, it's like the question is, what quality of lavender were they using?
Right.
And how many test subjects did they use it on? Um, I just haven't really seen any studies that I'm pleased with. So I'm kind of on the fence with that one myself, but I like, it's an adaptogen. I don't feel, there's certain people that feel like, oh, you need to stay away from lavender and never use it. Well, it has some great properties. I mean, I use it for a natural antihistamine. My husband was highly allergic to cats, and when we met, I had five cats. He'd walk into my house and instantly start, runny nose, sneezing. His eyes would get all red. And using lavender on a daily basis, we merge our households, and we still have cats, and he's not bothered by it. So
I
it
love
has a lot of amazing properties.
yes.
But if you're worried about it, then certainly don't use it.
Right. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing because you listed quite a few different essential oils. So I would just say if there's any of that concern, like you could use a different oil and stuff. Like the frankincense is one of my very favorites for stuff like that. But
So many great things you can do for the liver. Uh, and that's also, eating your cruciferous vegetables, because the sulforaphane in there is good for the liver and it's a precursor to your master antioxidant glutathione. So, those are some important things. There's all these little things you can add and just picking one or two so you're not overwhelmed. But different people like to do different things, and I like to offer all these suggestions. Um, do you have anything to say about that before I move on? I do have a couple
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, no, thank you. So that's exactly right. There's like a million little things that you can do, and you're listing out a ton, and you don't want to get overwhelmed. A lot of these, like when we're talking about some of these supplements and herbs and things, you want to go back in our course. We're talking about, which are your root cause drivers. And when you know those, then it's going to help direct and drive the choices so you can be more specific and strategic. So, if you do have some of those, estrogen dominance patterns, then, looking at making sure you get those cruciferous vegetables, looking at how you're metabolizing those estrogens, if that's an issue, adding the cruciferous vegetables so you can put more of an emphasis on that and, know where to pick your battles. Because, like Rochelle said, there's so many things you can make yourself insane. And this is where we want to test and not guess so that we're not missing what is, going to move the dial the most for us. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and there's just a couple more that I want to share, but
Please.
this is another controversial topic,
I love
but
it.
really into the bioidentical progesterone, especially for estrogen dominance, because I love what Dr. John Lee said, and I'm going to read this. He's a well-known physician and author, and found that if estrogen is not well balanced with progesterone, that imbalance can block the functioning of the thyroid gland, and prescribing a thyroid hormone oftentimes fails to correct the underlying estrogen dominance issue. Um, he also said that with a decrease in progesterone, estrogen can circulate unchecked. So I take bioidentical progesterone, and it's made a huge difference for me with fibroid bleeding. They wanted to do a hysterectomy, but because I have my own estrogen dominance issues. And just adding that progesterone has completely shifted it. And I still have my uterus. So,
Yay,
you know,
keep your uterus. It is controversial. And I think it really depends on where the person is individually. And again, test, don't guess. We don't want to drive any hormones because when you add them exogenously from the outside, you're taking away the body's natural feedback loop. So supporting them naturally is usually the first line of defense, but then it can be a very appropriate situational thing depending on where you're at. I absolutely agree with you, Rochelle.
right. And I do have that monitored regularly from my
Exactly.
primary care physician who specializes in BHRT. So, so I do see her every 14 weeks and we monitor it, but it's made a big difference for me. But I do like to recommend cleavers for the lymphatic system. It's one of the primary herbs I like to recommend for the lymphatic system. It because it improves its ability to flush out toxins and decrease congestion and reduce swelling. So that's one herb that I like. Do you know much about that one, Katrina?
I don't usually use that one, so I'm really interested now. I'm gonna go look it up.
Yeah, so cleavers. And then another one is red root, which is a powerful lymphagogue, and it's also powerful for liver decongestion. So, like I said, I'm not a master herbalist. By all means, do your research. But those are two that I like to recommend. And I've actually learned that from clients that are already using them. So one of my clients, she has cleavers in her yard and she makes her own. So she makes her own tinctures. So
Wow.
that's yeah. So that's that's about it for self-care, but I think that's a lot. And as Katrina has said as well, just pick two or three. Start with two or three that you like to do. And of course, know what's going on in your body before you just jump in with everything. But
Okay, this is fantastic. Rochelle, I just want to ask a question that might be on people's minds. Since we're being controversial, we're just going to go there. So, on the self breast massage, let me just throw this out there. If someone has a partner, it doesn't need to be self, does it? I mean, this can be part of a healthy relationship where you're taking care of each other and, benefiting your health as well, right?
absolutely. In fact, I do have a few clients. I was teaching them that, and they go, "Oh, I can teach this to my husband. He would love this." I'm like, "That's great. I think that's a wonderful idea." But absolutely.
Well, then you're getting the oxytocin, plus you're getting that intimacy, so the emotional connection. So it's like, I love anything that we can do that's like stacking the benefits, multitasking. I don't know if it's the mom in me or what, but when we can get multiple benefits from something, I'm like, that's on my list.
Oh, I love that too. Like I'll go back to the client that her husband was not able to touch her breasts. Well, he was all on board with the self breast massage. So yeah, I mean, I highly recommend that. And look where it got her 3 months later, and no more breast tenderness. So absolutely.
Apparently, he was on board. I love that. Recommendations for monitoring breast health. And I just want to talk about, preface this question that for diagnostic purposes, that's different than monitoring. And I want to flush that out. So tell me what your thoughts on monitoring.
Well, the simplest way to begin is your own self breast examination. And you can do some of that with the self breast exam. You can slow it down. But what I really want women to understand is the breast tissue is not just the breast, it goes all the way up to your collarbone, your clavicle, all the way over to the border of your axilla, down under the breast, and to the sternum. So
Okay,
you're going
I have to say, after 7 children, I think I have breast tissue on my whole torso. Like, it just migrates. So I think this is a really, really good point. And, like, even, like, that whole armpit, it's so connected. So I love that you brought this up.
Mhm. Yes, and so, and you can do some gentle palpation, with your arm over your head, and just, gentle palpation of the breast, circular motions, and, you can get as involved as you want with that, because you start with the superficial layer, then you go to the mid layer, and then to the deep layer, um, examining the breast. You can do some of that with the self breast massage, but just notice any changes. Is the breast tissue the same on each side? Are there differences? It helps give you a baseline. So that's something you can do that's easy, cost effective. And that one is probably best you doing on your own and not your husband, because it's easier for you to monitor your breast tissue than somebody else. So,
That's good to know. And I just want to emphasize, like, there's not a wrong way to do this. I think sometimes I hear from clients that are like, they don't do things like this because they're afraid they're going to do it wrong and they don't know the right way. And I just want to, if you're that kind of perfectionist, letting it stall you out or something, like, you're just trying to pay attention and get tuned into your body. And yeah, I get what you're saying about, like, you're gonna do a better job of, keeping catalog on yourself, but, maybe 2 eyes are better than 1, or 2 hands, having your partner and yourself. But yeah, either way, there's not a wrong way. Is that correct? Would you agree?
agree with that. I have a client, her husband actually found the lump in her breast. So,
Mm.
uh, and the other thing is a lot of women are afraid to touch their own breast because they're afraid to find anything. I have a couple friends like that. It's like, why wouldn't you want to find it if you find it early and find out if it's benign or not? Why wouldn't you? So don't be afraid to touch your breasts. A lot of women don't want to touch their breast tissue. And
There's
I
a there. Yeah, and I would just piggyback on that because I've had people that'll share with me they don't touch their own breast because they feel dirty. And there's, religious, moral, odd things they've picked up from their childhood. There's weird things about being embarrassed they have such large breasts or such small breasts. I mean, we are so neurotic about our breasts, and there's so many funky psychological components that go into this. So this is really important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and a lot of it's a cultural thing as well. Other countries don't have the same viewpoints with the breast tissue as we do here. So, but you're right, some of it's religious. But I encourage you to get comfortable with touching your breasts. It's important. It's just a part of your body. It's an important part of your body. As we're talking about prevention and monitoring the breast tissues, I'm really an advocate for thermography versus going directly to mammography. Um, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I know that that's controversial, but did you know that the FDA has actually dropped the recommendation on annual mammograms? Um, but thermography is a great preventative tool. Because it can predict, it picks up, it uses an infrared camera, so it picks up heat patterns in the breast tissue, and it monitors the function of the breast tissue. So they look for asymmetry in the breast tissue, different heat patterns, and possible, inflammation, because your skin is a great sensor for changes happening in your body. And it's non-invasive. There's no EMFs. There's no pressure on the breast. And it can detect patterns in the body, changes where it could develop into cancer 8 to 10 years. So it picks up changes 8 to 10 years before it can develop into that. And because I see a lot of ladies, we have a thermography center here. A friend of mine has her own thermography center here, Thermography Northwest, Kelly Callahan. And she refers clients to me who have the imbalances. And it's not a diagnostic, but it's obvious that they don't have cancer. So she sends them to me, and I go over a lot of the things I already shared with you earlier. And working with me on a regular basis and doing some of these lifestyle changes, in 3 months, they go back for another thermography, and it's more balanced. So I like to recommend thermography for prevention. And also, uh, we have Kavina ultrasound here. They do full breast ultrasound. And, what most women don't realize is fibrocystic breasts show up as white on a mammogram, and cancer cells can show up white on a mammogram. So a lot of cancers are missed by a mammogram, but full breast ultrasound can pick that up when it's very small. So, no, it's not an actual diagnostic, but it can pick up those changes. And then you can go for the diagnostic, either with a mammogram or however you want to move forward with that. Katrina's blood tests, working with Katrina. I know that you do a lot of that, and you're the first person I would go to. So that's my viewpoint on thermography. And I think a lot of women, if you're looking for a diagnostic, then it's not the place to go. But for prevention and I think everybody should get a baseline.
Yeah.
I'm just getting that baseline to see what's happening in the breast tissue. And if you see changes, then it really makes you probably want to be a little more committed to daily self-care. What can you do so that nothing does develop that is more serious and more expensive to work with? Um,
And
yeah,
scary.
and scary. Yeah.
I love what you're saying, and I think it's so important. Um, so just to clarify, so having like a regular thermogram or ultrasound can help you just know your breast along with the self-care and everything to see things early. But I want to just what Rochelle's saying is dead on. Like doing an ultrasound or a thermography is not going to give you a diagnosis. So if something shows up abnormal, you don't know what it is. So that can be very confusing because if you're not already familiar with this idea, mammograms actually cause cancer because they're radiation. And a lot of women, if they get nervous or scared about breast cancer, they just get more and more mammograms thinking they're going to make sure they catch it early. And a lot of times they can actually drive things. So this is not what we want to do. And again, the traditional standard of care, you have to have a mammogram, then they usually give you an ultrasound, and then they do a biopsy. Mammograms are radiation. The biopsies can leave secondary track marks and cause secondary cancers on those track marks. So what Rochelle was referring to is that Datar has a blood test that is FDA approved for diagnostic purposes to actually say, is there cancer without being toxic or invasive or do anything negative. So yes, the thermogram is going to be cheaper and better for preventative. And then something like Datar is going to be better for diagnostic. So you have to know what the question is that you want answered before you pick what you're going to do test wise. And this is a very confusing area for a lot of people and why it can be controversial, like Rochelle said. Can we circle back on the thermograms and the the way they work, you were talking about how they pick up heat. And can you address, because a lot of my clients are, middle-aged moms and we're nursing sometimes. Can you talk about how that would impact a thermogram?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I'm not an expert, but I do know that if you're nursing, you are going to show extra increased vascularization in the breast tissue, which is completely normal. So, from what I've been reading, they recommend waiting 6 months after you're done nursing to go get a thermogram because of that extra vascularization. You do need that extra circulation because you are breastfeeding. So there is that. That's what I was reading. Like I said, I'm not an expert.
That's what I have read too. And this is not something they do a lot of research on because it's not, bringing in money, but I get people asking me a lot of times, did I do thermograms when I found my lump? And I did not because of this reason, because I was actually nursing when I found it, which is how I found it, because I had a plugged duct, mastitis, which is what I thought was the issue, and it wasn't. But it brought, because I was not doing self exams, just right there saying it, which is not good and what I would not recommend. But I found it nursing, so the thermograms would not be accurate to show anything because everything was showing up warm at that time. But the blood test can be very great for diagnostic to not have to mess with things, if you will.
I was doing some reading, and on Quorum, they have a really great article about how mammograms actually damage breast tissue. So, they're applying 60 pounds of pressure on the breast tissue. Would you ever do that to a man's testicles? I don't think so. The article talked about how uh, depending on how tall you are or how they position you, you can actually damage the Cooper's ligaments and press too hard, and it can cause drooping of the breast tissue.
Like, you
You
need to say that again. That's really huge. So it's not the bralessness, it's the mammograms.
That's what the article said, and I thought, that makes a lot of sense. And the woman who wrote the article went into great detail about how it damages the breast tissue when you have a mammographer who does not do a good job and applies too much pressure, positions you improperly. It can actually damage those ligaments so the breast will drop. And that can be, I imagine, pretty traumatic for a lot of ladies. So,
Yeah.
in addition to getting the electromagnetic field applied to the breast over and over again, you're damaging the breast tissue as well. And it said in the article that the breast tissue can migrate over to the side. So you're actually displacing that breast tissue up top that makes your breast look perky and plump. So I thought that was interesting. And, and most ladies don't know that the mammography equipment they use now is a lot more high powered than it was even 10 years ago.
I did not.
So, yeah. So, like I'm not, I had my own bad experience with a mammogram years ago, and I will never get, I had one. I had to go back for a second one because of a big scare, and I will never go back again. So it was a traumatic experience. And I just encourage women to take other routes for monitoring and diagnostic and, definitely work with Katrina because I think you're the first person I would call.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. This was beautiful and so many great little gold nuggets in there. And I just love your message of wanting to empower women to prevent. So, for any of you that already have a cancer diagnosis, do not despair. This information is going to help you. Not only, as you're going through your cancer diagnosis, but especially afterwards. Like, this is not just before, it's during and after as well, that we want to be monitoring our breast and being in touch and taking care of them. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Rochelle.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. And thank you for having me on your podcast. I really enjoy these with you.
Absolutely.